Welcome to Bridging the Education Gap, the podcast where parents, teachers, and education leaders come together to share insights, stories, and strategies that connect learning at home and in school. Whether you're a parent navigating homework struggles, a teacher fostering classroom breakthroughs, or an education leader seeking innovative solutions, this is your space to learn, grow, and collaborate. Each week, we dive into real conversations about education, from tackling pain points to celebrating success stories, all with one goal: to bridge the gap and empower every child's learning journey. I'm your host, Jessica Shelley, so let's get started. Today, we're exploring the challenge and resilience it takes to teach at a Title I school in our conversation with Lauren Boyle. Lauren is an experienced educator who has taught in both Pennsylvania and Florida, bringing a wealth of insight into the distinct dynamics of Title I schools. She has navigated classrooms with diverse challenges, including supporting English language learners and students facing difficult home situations. With a passion for fostering connection and innovation in education, Lauren's perspective offers a powerful look at the realities of teaching in underserved communities. Lauren, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, well, let's start off with hearing more about your journey as a teacher and what inspired you to pursue a career in education.
Sure. So I would say my love for teaching started probably when I was in middle school, high school. I realized I really loved working with children. I liked babysitting. I would watch my cousins and my family members and friends, and I just really enjoyed it. So I decided to go and take that step to become an educator. I also had a couple great teachers in the past that really pushed me, to be my very best self. And when I told them I wanted to be an educator, they did everything they could to give me the inspiration to go. And I also had some pretty bad teachers that, I kind of felt like maybe didn't believe in me. And I also wanted to prove them wrong. So a mix
Love
of
it.
all that is how I started my education journey.
So you've taught in both Pennsylvania and Florida. So what would you say were like the biggest differences that you've noticed in transitioning from a title to the Title I school in Florida?
Yeah. So when I was in Pennsylvania, I taught second grade, and it was a little bit of a lower income school, but nothing compared to the differences here in Florida. So I've been teaching third grade for the past 3 years here, and just the difference with, our ELL learners, the families come from low income as well, lots of foster families and families who are homeless. It's a Title I school, so the funding's low. It was just a huge gap. And along with, the curriculum's different and the expectations for teachers are very much different. So it was just a huge shock when I moved from Pennsylvania to Florida.
And then what would you say are like some of the unique challenges that you've encountered with your students? I mean, you've talked a little bit about like the structure of the school being a little different from Pennsylvania to Florida with like the low SES and then also Title I. But what really drew you into focus on supporting the English language learners in your classrooms and then the challenges that you might have encountered so far?
So when I first had my first classroom here in Florida, I think I had about 17 students, and 8 or 9 of them were all ELL. So they all spoke mostly Spanish or Haitian Creole. So that was a big culture shock for me, just because I do not speak Haitian Creole, I do not speak Spanish. So I wanted to make sure that I was doing the best for my students. So I wanted to push myself to, take ESOL courses that the school provides, so that way I can learn more and what I could do to help those students. So one of the biggest things was really just trying to communicate with them, even on a daily basis, and trying to do that with a translator, or because there's no translators in the classroom, you have to use your phone or a tablet. So using those, trying to find manipulatives that I could have in classroom as well. Everything's coming out of out of my pocket, not the schools. So I wanted to try to use what I could and just get through to those kids as much as I could. So that was just the biggest challenge, I would say.
Yeah, step one is just kind of opening those lines of communication because then you can kind of start to move in one direction, right? Together. So
Exactly.
that's great that you kind of pulled in different resources. Is there any like apps or tools specifically that you can recall from those early days or things that you might already use in your classroom now?
So I know we used Lexia, which is a really great program, and they have Alexia English, which is helps Spanish speaking students. We also used iReady, which was also a really great program that helped kind of bridge the gap for those ELL learners.
Fantastic, fantastic. And then how would you say like at a Title I school, they're not all students that are English language learners that are getting, additional resources and things. It's based on socioeconomic level is the Title I designation. And so tell me a little bit more about how you support students that might be coming from, difficult home situations as well.
So I definitely felt like I don't have kids of my own, but I kind of have like a motherly instinct of just like taking them in as my own. I try to really foster a really great community in my classroom to make it feel like warm and welcoming and comfortable, that those students can come to me if there's any problems, or just so they feel like they have a safe space. And I truly just build that community right from the beginning of the school year to the end. Try to include things that I know will make them happy, even if that's like little like books about, like, I know soccer is like a huge thing here. So like I got like different soccer stars that they know of, got books for the library so they could read about it, incorporate games into our learning, just to let them be kids and let them have fun and kind of not think about, what's happening on the outside.
Yeah, a little bit of using school as kind of a release too, or like, adjusting the sort of rhythm or routines that they might be experiencing at home.
Yes,
I love that. I
exactly.
love that. So what are some like of those practical strategies? You mentioned adding books into your library for based on their interest, but what are some other ways that you kind of seek to make a connection or a relationship with both the student and then also their families?
So a big thing is I usually hold a parent teacher like conference. And I ask, if the parents want to speak to me, they can come in and we can have a conversation or a phone conversation. Most of the time it is a phone, because that's just what works best, just to kind of get to know them. Also, I send home like a paper that literally like kind of like describes like what does your child like to do? What don't they like to do? What's their favorite subject? Those little things. Me an idea of how I can structure my classroom as well. And just truly, I get to know the kids. I sit them down and I ask them, what's your favorite thing to do? What's your favorite sport? What's your favorite color? We do a lot of like meet and greet activities in the beginning of the school year that really help with structuring how the rest of my plans are going to be, or what I'm going to try to include in my lessons, like using examples that they can relate to.
That's phenomenal. I mean, really kind of focusing into on those first like 6 weeks, I think is always like that transitional period where you're getting to know each other, you're getting to know the classroom
Yes.
routine procedures, but then being able to keep all of that information in your back pocket to pull it out at the strategic times throughout the year to really make sure that the lessons are engaging and that, you're responsive to what they're interested in as well. And I love too, like that community aspect that you kind of build among students as well at the beginning of the year. They can learn each other's interests as well as you're, crafting your school culture and your classroom culture. Um, awesome. Well, Title I schools, we know that they often lack resources, and you've already mentioned some creative solutions that you've used in order to kind of break down those communication barriers. But do you have any other ideas or things that you've used in your classroom, creative solutions that you've implemented to help overcome some of those barriers to lack of resources?
So, yeah, lack of resources is like not shy to us for Title I because we truly don't get a lot of funding. A lot of the stuff comes out of all the teachers' pockets, which, we're okay with because we want our classroom to feel homey. We want it to feel nice that the kids can come in. What I usually do is I reach out a lot of teachers that are either retired or maybe they're just not teaching anymore. They will donate things like to the classrooms. So I get a lot of donations, which is amazing. I also, we put up Amazon lists and people will donate to Amazon lists. And just like the other teachers, they have so many things that they're probably maybe not using. We try to like help each other out with any type of things that we could get our hands on that we could use in our own room if they're not using it. We share a lot of like links to like teachers pay teachers and stuff like that that we could use and just print out and like, create on our own. So I definitely think that is a huge like saver for us, is working with each other.
Yeah, that's amazing. Sharing of resources. I remember when I was in the classroom, we would have like a big table that we set up in the cafeteria, and anyone who wasn't using
Yep.
anything at the beginning of the year, you just take it there and then you take what
They
you
do
need.
that in my school too. They do it at the end of the school year and in the beginning. So in case you want to grab anything for your classroom, you can. So it's great because usually what you're looking for, it is there.
Yeah, especially as you like switch grade levels and things, and there's just not enough storage for everything as you go from
Yes.
third to kinder or whatever. So it's nice to be able to keep it in the ecosystem of the building as well.
Yes.
I know when we first connected, you were telling me a little bit more about Florida's policy that requires third graders to pass the standardized test in order to move to the next grade. And so I want to tap into this a little bit because it was new information to me, and I think it'd be really eye-opening too for our listeners. So tell me more. I mean, I already know a little bit, but let's elaborate on this a little bit for our listeners here today. And tell me a little bit about the policy, just to kind of recap, and then how you kind of the pressure that this creates for your students in your classroom and how you kind of navigate that.
Yeah, sure. So this was something that my mind was blown when I first moved to Florida to learn that this is how kids are going to pass or fail. So third grade is the pass or fail grade in the state of Florida with the standardized testing. It's called the FAST. They take three tests, one in the beginning of the school year, one in the middle, and then one at the end. Depending on the year, I think this year students need a level 2 to get like good cause, which is not technically passing, but they will go to fourth grade, or they need a level 3, which is passing to go to fourth grade. And if they don't get this, then they either will retest them again using a different standardized test, or they will have to go to summer school. If they don't pass the standardized test during summer school, they have to repeat third grade again. And I just think it's wild because third grade is such a big grade with big changes compared to second and third. So, and they're just really starting to like standardize tests in third grade. I can tell you that I've never standardized tests like done like testing so much compared to like second grade and third grade. So it's definitely overwhelming. It's a
Mhm.
lot of pressure, and not just for us, but for the kids. And I truly don't think they really realize it until like the end of the school year comes that this is happening.
Yeah. And then by that time, it's kind of like if you didn't take the beginning of the year seriously, it's hard to kind of catch them up in time to really meet those expectations by the end of the year, I bet. And I know that in our original conversation too, you had mentioned, the emotional toll that it has on you and the students when they are retained, if summer school doesn't work or they're not able to, do the alternate testing assignment. So tell me a little bit about how that affects like classroom culture or even like the culture for third grade as a whole, knowing that you might have, older students in that grade level more frequently.
So when I was first teaching third grade, my first year here, that was, I think the hardest for me. It hit me the hardest because I had to tell kids, hey, you're going to fourth grade, or hey, you have to go to summer school. And it it broke my heart like the first time I had to do it because I had to sit them down and look them in the eye and tell them, hey, you tried your best and I'm proud of you, but you're not going. You have to go to summer school. And it was definitely hard on the kids. And I don't think like I said, they didn't really fully grasp it because testing is just like so overwhelming and so new to them that they're like, oh, like this is actually real. Like I need to pass this to be able to go to the next step. So the first year was the toughest. I would say since then, I have made it a point that fast testing is like the first thing we really talk about. And we actually, when we do like the end of the school year, second graders will come and like talk to third graders. We mention it there
Mm.
too, just so that way they are prepared for when they come in next year that this is real, it's intense, but it's okay. Like we're gonna get you through it. And I mention it throughout the whole entire school year that do your best, try your best, and I'm gonna be proud of you no matter what. And if you don't pass, it's okay. Some kids need another year, and that is totally okay. I mean, truly, like my whole team, we try to foster such a good community of those retained kids. There used to be a separate classroom. Now they're just kind of spread out throughout the grade level. So this year that was an adjustment, but I felt like usually kids were pretty understanding and, kind and, they get it. Like some kids just need an extra year and that's okay. Or some kids just aren't good with testing and that's okay. So it's definitely just trying to set them up right in the beginning, I feel like is where we find more success so the kids fully understand what's expected of them by the end.
That makes sense. And I think too, like that proactive sort of nature when they come up to visit from second grade is great because then they can have the summer to kind of delve
Yes.
into that or process emotions or however they feel going into the new school year without having like surprises for, here we go, day one, expectations
Yes.
are in place. So yeah. And then I think, with that, you had talked a little bit about, how you create this kind of culture of trust and things within your classroom. But how about on the teacher side? Like, how do you feel like the high stakes testing, especially in the third grade, like your third grade level team, do you think that that contributes to potential like teacher burnout or like increased stress? And what kind of changes do you think you would propose to address the issue?
So, a 100%, I think it does go with teacher burnout. Very intense because we are also held so high, like on, like, this totem pole saying, like, hey, like, you guys need to pass these third graders. Like, it's up to you. Like, this is pass or fail. So it's a lot of pressure on us. And I said my first year when I'm still learning everything that's new, throwing on testing and like feeling the pressure, I was very overwhelmed and very, very like burnt out by the end of the school year. I was just so relieved when it was over. What we've kind of done, especially, I feel like my team is amazing. I have such amazing teammates. There's 7 of us this year. There was 8 of us or 9 of us last year. Like, we truly tried to just work with each other, and it was more of like talking to one another and saying, hey, we're not alone. We're in the same exact boat. We're all doing the same exact thing. Like, we don't have to go through this and be stressed. Like, we can get through it together. So I felt like that in itself was a huge like weight lifted off my shoulders when I felt like I wasn't alone in all of this. It was definitely disappointing to see the scores at first because the kids are, at a different level, and it's upsetting because you teach them and teach them, and you're feeling like, oh my gosh, is it me? Am I not doing what I'm like, what else do I need to do? And just having that close team knit, I think really got us through teacher burnout, to be honest, especially this year.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Leaning on your teaching partners, your curriculum leads, instructional coaches, whoever you have in the building to kind of
Yes.
use as a resource is great to, maybe just take a step back sometimes and realize the full gravity of what's actually happening. It might feel like life or death, but really, no matter what, there's always the next step that's coming. So I love that you guys can lean on each other and have that kind of camaraderie in your building as well. So I want to shift gears and think a little bit more about like the technology aspect. With the rise of AI and things, there's a lot of buzzwords that are floating around in the education sphere. So if you were to kind of come up with a magical tool, or maybe you use some tools in your classroom right now, what would you like to see from education technology platforms or providers that could better address the challenges that are faced by teachers that are serving students in Title I schools?
So I definitely would say one, I think would be like affordable, make it an affordable app or access, especially for like those Title I schools that truly we don't have the funds, but we want to, bring those on for our kids, and we think it would be beneficial to them. Also, just make it like user friendly. I've realized working with these kids, kids do pick up on technology pretty quickly, but it's still a process to get them used to computers, and even just teachers too. I feel like there's so many different apps, and there's so many different steps, and it gets overwhelming. So making sure it's user friendly and easy to navigate, I think would be best. And just also like localizing like the content, like just where your content's coming from, like making sure it's culturally like relevant to those students, because I feel like they would be able to like, you know, um,
They'd be more engaged or better
yes,
able to connect.
more engaged.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. When they feel like it's relevant
Yeah.
to them.
Absolutely. And I think we had touched on a little bit about what Dailies does and how we support, English language learning students and provide personalized learning for kind of the full gamut of learner that you could imagine in your classroom. So what excites you most about these kind of new up and coming tools that are in the space to support learners like you have in your class?
I definitely love the fact that it like individualizes learning, because not all students are the same. All students are on different levels, and I love that this particular program, it will individualize the learning for the students. And also it gives like immediate feedback. Like, I love to have immediate feedback so that way I can use it in my own classroom and help my students. I feel like some of them you have to kind of wait. I know some of them it's like a week or so, like when you get the feedback back, and I'm like, I need it now. I need to be able to like make these lessons and help my students. So definitely love immediate feedback. Also the accessibility, being able to translate for students. I think, that is so important and amazing, because that way anybody can use it. And also just having like getting like teacher insight, like for us, and what we can do and what we can use as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, that kind of feedback loop that kind of gets clogged up in like the traditional education system where, you have to wait for a week for the data to come in and then a week to review the data. And then by that week, you're already 2 weeks into your next unit
Yes.
because you've moved on since then.
Mm-hmm.
So really about those timely kind of feedback moments, that customization of learning across the whole spectrum, right? So today
Yes.
we're talking about English language learners, but we
Yes.
see really high need in gen ed and special education and all those kind of different use cases, and the rise of personalization and learning, because we can now scale that a little bit easier with the utilization of technology and AI to help us, but still really relying on those best practices and those practitioners, the educators that are the ones who are actually administering the lessons and that are being, culturally responsive and able to focus in on those social emotional learning skills in the classroom that you can't really replicate with technology. So
Yes.
I'm so grateful that we have the tools.
Yes.
And also a little jealous because I'm out of the classroom right now, but oh my goodness, I'm so excited for the future and how we can continue to support learners across the board. I know we're getting ready to wrap up here, so just a couple final thoughts, but based on your experience, what advice would you give to teachers that are transitioning into a Title I school or working in a Title I school currently to help them stay motivated and resilient through the trials that you guys experience day in and day out?
So I would 100% tell people to find your community, find the people at your school that is going to root for you, that's going to help you, that's going to be there for you, because they are going to be able to lift you up when you're having a bad day, or if you need help in any way, they are there for you. So I definitely think like leaning on your instructional coaches, other teachers in other grades, administration, anybody is really, really important to do. And also just, I always think like I'm doing these for the students, and I truly think about it every day. Like I'm making an impact in their life, and I know I am. So like that keeps me going 100%.
Phenomenal. Yeah. Impact every day. I do like hashtag better together, I feel like, on all my posts, because it really is about that community, that tribe that we're creating around the learner, the tribes that we're creating of support around the educators that are in the building serving students. And then, of course, the admin, which is another isolated kind of role in the education sphere where you don't have very many other people that are in a very similar roles. I love those kind of points of connecting to your people and finding those supports where you can. On the final thought for the day, if you could change one thing about the education system to better support students, teachers, or families, what would it be?
So this one's kind of individualized for Florida, and it would be to change the standardized testing away from third grade and not make it a pass or fail. I feel like students should be able to, one, like I'm not a good test taker. So I would be worried for me if it was me taking these tests, like, and I would have to either pass or fail. Like, I know that I'm able to do the work, but I am just a terrible test taker, and I've always been that way. I think it's important that we take a step back and really look and see if this test is really going to determine if a child is ready for fourth grade or not, rather than, looking at the grades that they've gotten throughout the school year, or, having retention back in kindergarten or first grade or second grade when they're still learning those key things they need, because we have kids coming up that they still can't read, and it's awful for them to have to go through this because they're already 2 steps back. So definitely changing the retention and the testing. That would be something that I would love for there to be a change with.
That makes a lot of sense too. Those skill gaps that they come in with third grade, they maybe spending a little more time when there's not as high stakes as, the third grade testing is maybe a better place for them to be retained as well. So interesting insights today. Thank you so much, Lauren, for sharing your journey, insights, and resilience as an educator in Title I schools. Your dedication to fostering connection, creativity, and engagement, despite the challenges, is really, truly inspiring. And it's a reminder of the incredible impact that teachers have in shaping lives. The value in this conversation today, don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with your network. And then join us next time on Bridging the Education Gap as we continue exploring stories, strategies, and innovations that empower students, teachers, and families. Until then, let's keep working together to bridge the gap and create brighter futures for every child.